Welcome to the Cancer Has No Borders podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Meghan Gutierrez, who is the CEO of the Lymphoma Research Foundation. Hi, Meghan. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having us. It's great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your organization.
The Lymphoma Research Foundation is actually the nation's largest nonprofit organization that's exclusively devoted to funding biomedical research and serving patients and care partners whose lives have been impacted by a lymphoma or CLL diagnosis.
How long has your organization been around?
The Lymphoma Research Foundation will actually be celebrating its 30th birthday this
Wow.
autumn.
Wow. Are you doing anything special for that? Any big events or anything for that?
We absolutely are. I always think of anniversaries for our organization as an opportunity to reflect on our past achievements, but more importantly, to reflect and think about the achievements yet to come. We have so much progress to make as a community that I think it's a wonderful opportunity to think about what we will be able to do to someday achieve our mission to eradicate lymphoma forever.
So tell me a little bit about the scientific research that your organization works on and how do you break that down?
We really believe that the power of research will lead us to that fulfillment of our mission. We do this in several ways. One of the hallmarks of our research portfolio is investment in the next generation of lymphoma experts.
Okay.
We do this through a number of grant mechanisms, including early career grants for investigators who want to pursue lymphoma and CLL research. We also have a first-of-its-kind mentoring program for medical students and early career researchers, where we not only provide grant funding, but we're able to convene the world's experts in lymphoma to serve as their faculty for a very unique workshop series. We then mentor them for a period of 24 months as they're really put in a position to apply for that first research grant or their first faculty position. It's really quite unique, but we know how critical it is to train the best and brightest in the field. We also offer large research grants that are specifically focused on lymphoma subtypes, where we're supporting more senior investigators who are looking for those new clinical breakthroughs or to better understand the etiology or how the different subtypes of lymphoma form and why certain patients develop the disease.
So in the oncology cancer world, there's a lot of unmet needs. Can we talk about that a little bit? Just talking about what could we improve?
Absolutely. I think access to quality cancer care for every patient should be a priority of every member of our community, even beyond the narrow confines of hematology, but across all oncology. We know, unfortunately, the breakthroughs we were speaking about a moment ago don't reach every patient. So to begin with, to think about access to clinical trials for every patient, quality education, to also ensure that every lymphoma patient, as you know, there are over 100 subtypes of lymphoma in CLL. So understanding your specific diagnosis is critical to making a treatment decision that will bring you the most efficacious and safe treatment for your lymphoma. So I think all of those things represent opportunities for growth and improvement. But I'll also note no one organization, no one institution, no one company are going to be able to fill those gaps. And so I really think we need a collaborative approach to reach every patient where they are with the appropriate education and treatment that they need.
Tell me your thoughts on the importance of clinical trials and why are they so important?
Well, in oncology, of course, I think they play a very special role because they're the singular pathway by which we develop new treatments,
Mhm.
advance medicine, and extend and save lives. Unfortunately, far too few patients are aware of
Yeah.
opportunities around clinical trials. We know that there's a disproportionately low number of patients who end up actually participating. And we think there are myriad reasons, and they're very unique to the patient experience. But to begin with, and to go back to just the notion of being offered a clinical trial, there are unfortunately many patients and their care partners and family members who are simply unaware that a clinical trial might be a treatment option.
Yeah.
It either might be because it's never presented to them as an option. We also know that there continue to be a number of biases and really
Yeah.
misunderstandings about a clinical trial. Some patients have told me they still think of a clinical trial as a treatment of last resort. They're surprised to learn that a clinical trial can oftentimes bring them the most cutting-edge therapy for their lymphoma at the time and is a very unique way to have access to that treatment. We also know that there are a host of logistical barriers. So there are some patients who simply don't have the wherewithal or can financially afford the transportation or lodging.
Yeah.
those out-of-pocket costs that can sometimes be associated with participation in a clinical trial because they might have to travel to a tertiary or academic care center
Yeah.
in order to participate. I think there we can work together with industry partners is just one example to think about different financial aid mechanisms, support programs that we might be able to offer patients to provide that pathway to let them know they can be supportive if they and their doctor think a clinical trial is right for them. I think also thinking about different policies and procedures where we might be able to better harness the promise of decentralized clinical
Yeah.
trials. So maybe the frequency of travel, as an example, becomes less of a burden for patients.
Yeah, because if you're living in a rural area, you may not have easy access to it. It could be on the other side of the state or even in a completely different state. And
You're absolutely right. If you have to get on an airplane, as an
yeah,
example, that actually might be two tickets because a family member or
yeah.
someone else might need to accompany the patient, or the patient simply, may not feel comfortable moving forward with some of those appointments without someone there to support them, which is completely understandable. And when you think about also the time away in those cases where travel is required, that's time off work. A patient and their family might need to think about childcare or elder care, implications for that on their health insurance coverage if they miss too much time from work. So I think all of those things, again, uniquely impact patients in a variety of ways. But I do think we could be more solutions oriented and together find some meaningful ways that we could lessen that burden on
Are
patients.
you trying to educate patients with clinical trials also just to let them know about the standard of care that they get is so much higher when they're in a clinical trial because they're, monitored so closely? Do you talk about that with them?
We absolutely do. So at the Lymphoma Research Foundation, we host a number of live and virtual programs where we actively educate patients about the option of a clinical trial. We typically have a lymphoma or CLL expert there
Okay.
who can answer their questions. They really kind of demystify the process and also provide opportunities and information so that the patients and care partners in attendance can take that information back to their healthcare team and consider whether a clinical trial might be right for them. We also offer a very unique free clinical trial information service through our helpline. So any patient, care partner, even a nurse or healthcare provider can contact our experts on the helpline. They will be able to obtain information. They will take information about your particular diagnosis, where you live, how far even you might be willing to travel to consider a clinical trial.
Okay.
They conduct a search for you of every single clinical trial that's currently being offered in the United States, provide you with that information, and then also supply you with information so that you can take that information and engage in a conversation with your physician, oncologist, healthcare team about whether one of those clinical trials might be right for you.
Great. What could the industry overall be doing better?
Well, I think that a collaborative approach is better. So I never like to point out a particular stakeholder
Yeah.
and lecture or say that this is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Instead, I like to think about it. What are the opportunities we have together? So I think one of the biggest opportunities since we've been speaking about patient education and clinical trial would be to collaborate on the development of those clinical trials themselves. So some of those burdens we were speaking about could be ameliorated or at least adjusted if we think about making more patient-friendly clinical trials. So we've worked with a number of industry partners to create patient advisory councils.
Okay.
Members of our team have gone and spoken about the construct of clinical trials, created lay summaries so that patients can better understand the often very heavy scientific literature
Yeah.
that's required to understand a clinical trial. So that's just two examples of ways in which I think we can partner to better make clinical trials accessible. I think also the support we receive, because so many patients and care partners do feel more comfortable coming to a nonprofit organization for
Yeah.
education. So the support we appreciate and welcome with some of the collaborations we have with industry partners to support that independent education that we can
Yeah.
offer and bring to patients no matter where they live.
So I've noticed that throughout the conversation, instead of saying caregivers, you've switched to care partners. So tell me how that came about.
Absolutely. Like so many, we have used that word caregiver uh, since the beginning of the organization. But lately, and as we've seen the science and the medicine evolve so rapidly, increasingly we're having conversations about the role of those family members
Yeah.
and traditional caregivers. And we've noticed that the word caregiver really describes a one-way street, doesn't
Yeah.
it? They provide something, but increasingly these family members and loved ones and friends and family who rally around a person with lymphoma are taking active part in treatment decision making. They play an active role in helping a patient access therapies, learn about their disease. And we really feel that the word partner better represents better values and in some ways better respects the
Yeah.
role they play. So I think when we have begun in the last year to use the word care partner, we have received overwhelmingly positive
Yeah.
feedback, not just from the care partners, but from the patients who have really applauded that shift because they see every single day that
Yeah.
care partners don't get the day off. And they're
Yeah.
really the champions who help those patients through every facet of their diagnosis and beyond.
So when a patient is diagnosed, where should they go to? Like, what should they do? And also the care partner, because it's not just the patient. I mean, the patient is of course having to go through all these treatments and is probably very scared of what's the reality is of having cancer. But where should they go to kind of learn more?
I'm very pragmatic, and so we realize that the vast majority of people go to Dr. Google when they're first
Yeah.
diagnosed. Lymphoma and CLL, of course, they are rare disease subtypes, and it can be more challenging to find information. In fact, I've met many people when it's either they or their loved one who's been diagnosed. It's actually the first time they've ever heard of the
Yeah.
disease. So to Dr. Google they go, and unfortunately, there is not only a great deal of inaccurate
Yeah.
information online, it's outdated
Yeah.
as well. And outdated information can be just as troubling. So, what I advise people to do is find a trusted resource. Lymphoma.org, which is our website,
Okay.
has all of the latest information. We advise with our scientific experts and experts in the field on the disease to ensure that everything we're able to offer patients and their care partners is up to date and really contains information that is approachable to patients, no matter what their disease subtype may be, no matter where they're being treated, and no matter where they are in the treatment journey. So whether that's newly
Yeah.
diagnosed, maybe they've recently relapsed, or perhaps they're a long-term survivor. So I think that's a great place to start because they can not only avail themselves of the resources on our website and that our organization offers, but again, through our helpline and our live programs, the Lymphoma Research Foundation can then also refer them to reputable sources of information and support
And
services.
care partners can go there and also find out what they need to do or and how they can support.
They absolutely do. And I'm glad you brought that up because we actually supply specific resources exclusively for the care partners. We know that it can be difficult to find a community to be in when you're in that role. So we're happy to supply that not only through the direct provision of educational resources, but through our Lymphoma Support Network, which is a one-to-one peer program that we offer where we can, and when the program began, it originally began as an opportunity to introduce patients who have had a similar diagnosis or have gone on a similar treatment
Okay.
journey.
That's
But
that's
what we've increasingly found is care partners are using this program wanting to meet other care partners, both as a form of peer support,
okay.
emotional support, maybe someone who's walked in their shoes
Yeah.
before, but also an opportunity to learn best practices. What helped the patient in your life the most at this stage in their
Yeah.
journey? And I've heard from so many participants in their program. I think we have over 6,000 members, in
Wow.
fact,
That's great.
of people who want to give back, which I find so heartwarming that
Yeah.
at the conclusion of their journey, they want to give back and help the next person
Yeah,
who
so are
might
they
have
coming
that
to volunteer with
experience.
your organization and just fundraise and be part of the events? Are they doing all of that because they're so grateful?
All of the above. One of the earliest memories I have when I joined the foundation was a quote I heard from a patient. He said and remarked to me, "This isn't a club anyone wants to join,
Yeah.
but once you do, you find it is the most gracious and caring community you could imagine." And I think that's what I found through this program. I have heard through so many patient stories, people who have attended our programs, that they want to give back because they realize they're standing on the shoulders of
Yeah.
others who supported the foundation and our work, maybe volunteered for a program early on. So they return, they join the Lymphoma Support Network. They create a walk team for one of our annual lymphoma
Yeah.
walk
That's
programs.
awesome.
They volunteer and drop off educational materials at the cancer center where they were once treated.
Yeah.
All of these opportunities you can learn about again on our website, lymphoma.org. But I think just to see so many people wanting to give back really gives me hope for the community and in the great progress that we've been able to make.
Tell me a little bit about some of the challenges you have supporting a community that it's a rare disease. How are you supporting that type of community?
Well, it's a priority for the Lymphoma Research Foundation to ensure we're able to offer not only education and information, but support resources for every single lymphoma subtype. And with the vast number, you can imagine
Yeah.
that is quite the undertaking, but it's a commitment that we have made. So, particularly those patients with a rare lymphoma subtype, many remark that our organization is the first time they've been able to find any literature about their specific diagnosis.
Okay.
Similarly, we try to make sure that lymphoma support network, that some of the other resources we have, we make sure none of the rare disease or the rare lymphoma subtypes are overlooked. It was also the genesis of that clinical trial information network
Yeah.
that we spoke about a while ago. So we know that for some of these rare subtypes, there are no standards of care. And so a clinical trial is really the most important treatment option those patients can think about and utilize. And we wanted to make sure there was an efficient pathway for them to understand what their treatment options might be.
So, Megan, is there anything in the future that you're excited about that's coming up?
Absolutely. So, our 30th anniversary, which I mentioned earlier, is going to be kicking off in September, which, of course, is Blood Cancer Awareness Month. So, we have a number of exciting campaigns to celebrate our organization and our community. We'll be working with a number of partners and institutions, patient and advocacy groups to celebrate how far we've come. We'll be executing a number of exciting events, some really great programs on social media. So, I'd really invite people to visit our website and check out some of the great programs we have planned coming for this September.
Great. Congratulations on 30 years, too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much, Zach. Great to be here.
Be sure to follow us and subscribe to our podcast on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, or iHeart. You can also subscribe to the video version of the podcast on YouTube. Thanks so much.